who I've known Barney for a number of years. And Barney gives talks on leadership. I don't know what he's going to talk about today, but it's always interesting. It's always full of information. And Barney, I'm not sure if you're going to do this off camera or not.
Let's do it. Let's do it on camera. Why not?
Okay. So
I went to all this trouble to put clean clothes on.
Okay. We appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself, and you have a half an hour to just what you know.
Thank you, Tony. Well, it's a pleasure to be here this morning as usual. I love the friendships that I've created. A lot of those doors were opened by you through our initial conversations, and it's always a joy to be a part of the events and the conferences and the conversations that you put on. And so what I want to talk to you about today, and I am, as you know, and there may be some people on the call that don't know, I'm a creator and founder of Strategic Management Resources and Strategic Management Academy. And its initial focus was about leadership, and I've begun to branch it out into other areas. But I've had a passion for helping people build successful businesses and careers as long as I can remember, and have been an entrepreneur myself for many, many years. A few years ago, decided I want to help others instead of just doing within my own organization. So today, what I would like to talk about is one of the things that I think we spend a lot of time talking about it, but I'm convinced based on my own personal experience that it isn't what I call real red meat, and that's the power of a service mindset. We look at business and we say, okay, there's three things we can do. We can compete on the basis of product, price, or service on it. And in truth, the greatest single advantage that you'll ever be able to establish, I believe, is the power of real service, because real service means you're going to get the product right, and real service means you're going to be able to put it at a price that really creates and has the value that you would like that service to have. And I learned this real early on in my career. So what I'd like to do is tell you just a little story, and then we'll get into a little bit of the particulars of it. And then at the end of this, I'll make an offer to those that are listening. One of my early intros into the business world was a fishing friend of mine who owned a company, and he owned his own drugstore and a couple other people. But on a side deal, he had a little company that was what they call a safety supply company. And that company had a number of different things. This industries, and the hugest part of our industry in the San Joaquin Valley here was the food processing industry, and the who's who of the Del Montes and the Hunt's Foods and different unknown names. The Foster Farms happened to be one of them, the Gallo wineries, and those types of people were the industries that business served. And it was going under, and it was going under because of a poor manager who's basically just not doing what needed to be done, and it was product and money were going out the back door faster than they came in the front. And so there wasn't much of it was probably it was a bone basically, and I didn't know a lot about business. I was in my late 20s, and I said, sure, why not? And I happened not to have a job at that particular time, so I was looking for what's next in my wonderful career at that early age. And so we tackled the project, myself and another fellow. And I'll never forget what I think was one of those true seminal moments in my business life and career that served me well until today. And that is sitting down with a purchasing agent. And at that time, it was a little different world. They were paid to talk to vendors. They were paid to find the best products and the best services in order to help the efficiency of the company and to produce the kind of the highest quality products and services they could produce. So as I spent my 15 or 20 minutes of time in the sun talking to him about what I had and the products that I had, et cetera, I could see his interest begin to wane fairly quickly. And by the time I got done, my primary thought in hindsight and in truth was probably, how can I get out of here without being any more embarrassed than I already am? And I think it was a function of values that I had heard all my life, and I'd heard people, my parents and my grandparents, talking about it wasn't worth what we paid for it. And the problem, they would talk about the problems they solved, etc. And so I'm going to call it just a spark of intuition. And I asked him, I said, "Can you tell me something?" And they happen to be, by the way, the largest vendor in their particular interest in the entire country and largest account in the San Joaquin Valley. And he said to me, and boy, he knew exactly what it was. And I won't go into all the details of how we solved it, but he threw his problem right out on the counter. And he says, "There's something I've never been able to fix." And I took that as a challenge. I didn't know that I had the answer for it, but it was the only thing I could do to continue to just have to leave with my tail tucked between my legs and go on to something else. Well, as luck and hard work would have it, I found a solution to that problem. And it took about 18 months to find that solution. And at the end of that solution, we ended up being able to get that account. And that account took our business from a failed business to one that one single account was worth over $1 million in gross revenues. And I'm going clear back into the late 70s, because it was a lot of money then. Today's dollars, I don't know what was worth $4 or $5 million, and it was the beginning of something that I've never forgotten, and I based almost. I'm getting an echo from somewhere, but I've never forgotten, and I'm getting, then that's the kind of thing that I have tried to follow all my life. And so I'd like to talk, and it's a little different than what we tend to talk about. Just not in this. It's not just a question of, if I've got something broke, can I get it fixed? Are you going to stand behind it? There's a little more than that to it. And so I teach that as a part of my Better Way course of leadership. And it's the second item that I talk about in a course. And what I believe, I'd like to call it something a little bit different. I teach, it's one of the most powerful things you can do. And surprisingly enough, what happens when you teach it well and you learn how to apply it well to your business is that you find out whether you're dealing with customers or products. It doesn't matter what kind of business you're doing. If you're a solopreneur and you're going to work by yourself, the end result is going to be the same. And that result is all about finding a way to be the very best that you can and to give the absolutely best service that you can to a person. That means putting their interests in what the lawyers call a fiduciary relationship, so that you treat their interests better than yours. And when you put their interests first and provide what I believe is our reason for existence, and that's to be able to, we serve a purpose, and that purpose is about how can I do something to help somebody some way, to help their life, to fill their needs and their wants. Tony talked about a little earlier about his particular experience, and that can be huge, and I've never forgot that. So what it starts with is I turn that relationship, that normal buyer seller thing, which tend to be a little bit adversarial in this world, even when things are going really good, and I've turned that relationship into what I call a service mindset. And that means that when I walk in that door, I want that person's best interest to be the thing that I focus on. And frankly, that whole process and that whole mindset that I start with begins in a place that most of us don't think about. It's just not a Q&A station. The leadership has to begin there, or let me put it another way. The way that I teach it, service begins with your employees. If you don't start with treating your employees very best possible ways that you can, and I'll finish the definition of that, and you're making one of the biggest mistakes you'll ever make in business, because ultimately customer employees are the people who are engaging in those prospects you have, and they're engaging the clients that you have. And if you get it right with them, it's amazing how well the rest of your world can go, and how prosperous you will be as a direct result of that. So I begin with that. And what does it mean to treat your employees well? It means that if they've given enough of their interest in to you and to say, I'm going to come to work for this company and I'm going to spend my good time, my limited time working for this company, then I have a duty from my perspective to be able to give them a work environment that not only does it satisfy their internal motivational needs, but their external needs as well. So that's about creating a great environment to work in, and it's about creating the kinds of conditions that allow them to make the most out of their own lives and their own careers. And so we begin with that. And there's a real process there. And that process, to simplify it, is about, is this person a good fit for that position? Does this person's culture and belief follow what mine is? Because if it doesn't, I don't care whether, we're not going to make right or wrong on it. But the question is, if they don't believe in the kinds of things that I do, if they don't believe in what I just articulated for the purpose of this conversation, then I have the wrong people in my business. And so whether I'm right or wrong, that's an absolute essential. And then what I do is I provide the education and the training and the opportunities for them to do just exactly that. So what I hope to find is one of the hugest benefits of service that we rarely ever think about. And that is, if I've done this right, and I've brought people on board that are a fit for my organization, and I've treated them in the right way, then all of a sudden I find out that the vast majority of my problems with my prospects or clients begin to disappear, because what actually happens with that is that they go, happy employees are going to treat your customers in a very good way. And when they treat your customers in the best of ways, they're looking out for their customers' interests just like I would, because I know there's the value. They're the only reason I exist. If I don't have a customer, I don't have a business. Okay? And so that's where I go with that first concept. And then I take that concept a step deeper. If you do service right, and there are really three different kinds of service, and the one that very few people ever learn how to execute is what I call a proactive service. So rather than just saying, I'm going to make sure that they get a good product at a fair price, etc., and if something goes wrong with it, I'm going to fix it. What I believe you do is you have, again, if that customer is willing, and if you really want to build some loyalty, and you want to build the kind of customers that most businesses would die for, what you want to be able to do is to be able to take the customers that you have, and you want to give them more than what they ever expected. You want to be willing to look out for their best interest by saying, there's something that's coming down the pike that's even better than what you've been. I want to show you this new product. I want to show you a way of doing this. And when you do this and do it well, you're going to find that you have customers that actually will come back to you, and they'll be your very best referral source. And the reason they are is because they know that what you've done is help them stay at the top of their particular industry. And so let me back up for just a second and tell you one more thing about the customers, about what it's like to treat good employees. Excuse me. If you look at some of the very, very best businesses in our world today, I'm just going to give you a few examples. One of the examples might be somebody like Zappos, who's the shoe company, but they've got one of the most phenomenal cultures. People love working for that company. Google has done the very same thing with their organization, where they literally give people time off to think about projects. What can I do that's new? How can I use my innovative spirit rather than having it stifled? And you take a company, for example, like LL Bean, who is their motto basically is just send it back if it's not right. Sears for many, many years did exactly the same thing. And one of the oldest, what we would call a legacy corporation now, is a company called Marriott International, who happens to be the very largest hotel largest in their particular niche, the hospitality industry. Bill Marriott, when he first opened that first little a small hotel that he did many, many years ago. Embrace the concept that I just shared with you, and that is that if you take the time to treat your employees well, your employees will in turn do exactly the same thing with the customers. And at that time, it was people coming in off the early automobiles, which were piles of junk, and traveling for a day in one of those old cars was a real experience. And he learned that, and I had the good fortune to actually bump into somebody that is a man in the management stream with Marriott not long ago, because I used this particular thing as a part of my story, as a part of my leadership training. And I started asking him what it was like to work for Marriott, and the very same things that we talk about and I talk about. And by the way, Marriott Hotels is one of the clients going back a while that adopted. It wasn't much for them to adopt, but they believed wholeheartedly in the process that I'm talking about today. So if you want to build a business, if you're a solo entrepreneur, you take that concept to heart that says that I'm going to put my customers' interest right there at the very top of everything that I do. And how does this help them? Because believe me, if you help them, they're going to turn right around. They're going to be so grateful and so thankful and so prosperous that there's no good reason for them to ever go anywhere else. I think we all have clients and companies that we work with that are exactly that way. I know I have personal friends now in this industry that if I've got a question, if I got a problem, I got a challenge, that's exactly who I'm going to go to. And I refer people to these organizations and to companies that I know that are going to treat me in those kinds of ways. So that's what I call a service mindset, and it has to be a core value. It can't be a face that you put on. You have to wear that sometimes, and you have to wear it very much like a company. Like one of my other stories that I love to tell is the one about Nordstrom's. Nordstrom's story goes back a few years, but Nordstrom actually gave one of their clients, long-term clients, a refund on the tires that they bought from Nordstrom, and gave them a credit, took them back. And the interesting part of this story is that I have no idea what they did with those tires, but they've never sold a tire. Not now, not ever. But that client was so insistent they had bought them there that rather than lose that client, they actually gave the client a credit on their account. It's a phenomenal story. Who knows how much that person has spent? But that's part of how Nordstrom's built their reputation by never putting the client in a position to say tough noogie. All right, so that's one of the most critical pieces of being a good leadership. Develop a service culture that treats your clients and prospects, and above all else, your employees, which you can't fake it. You walk in that door and your your employees are unhappy and dissatisfied with where they work, you can bet that you'll pay for that many, many, many times over in the way that they mishandle their relationships with the customers that you have. So a couple of points. I have a fairly extensive white paper on the points that we talked about that goes a lot deeper, and that's free to anybody who is interested in having that white paper. And all you need to do is just send me an email to Barney, BARNEY at SMRA, the number one.com, and I'll send that to you. Second piece of my offer to you is that through the rest of this month, I'm going to take the concept that I just talked about, and we call it a service mindset, and make that available to anybody that's listening and interested. And you send it to your friends, I don't care who it is. And we normally sell that module for $297, which is fairly extensive. It's got an audio and an audio visual tape with it. It's got a very thorough transcript of it that goes into a lot deeper than what we're able to go into in this period of time. And it also comes so you can either listen to an audio-visual version, you can read a full, complete transcript of that whole hour and a half presentation, which is the actual module. and it's got an MP, what do they call it, MP4, I guess it is, 3 or 4, whichever one you can pop into your smartphone and listen to it in the car or wherever you want to go. So, and that price is $47 as well. So, and all you have to do the same thing when you send me an email, Barney at smra1.com, and just in the subject line put white paper or module, service modules. All you have to put in there, and I'll understand what it is. If there's any confusion, we'll clarify it. So I want to thank you, and my website is www.smra1.com. Again, www.smra1.com. Thanks to all of you for being here today and for listening to me. I love sharing something that is going to make a difference in your business life.
Okay, and Barney, wonderful tips as always. I guess my question to you is, and it's odd that Tanya Altman and I were talking about this earlier. She had to go to a meeting, but it seems that customer service seems to be going out of style. I mean, people don't seem to want to really kind of take care of their customers anymore. Are you finding that to be true, or no? Am I just?
No. I think that's a spot on discussion, and I think what happened, and I've done some fairly good research on this, is that what the internet kind of taught us to do is to do business in a very different kind of a way. But what you don't know is about the people that are voting with their feet, and find out that and I'm going to give you a current example. I actually had a vendor who gave me a free trial on something, and I couldn't even execute the application, never really opened it up. And that didn't matter to him. And I missed the day where you had to, and I rarely will do this anymore, and that's give somebody a credit card while I'm in a free trial. Sure enough, I missed the date on it and got dinged on my bank account for $79. And I called the vendor. And I heard one of the worst things you can ever do in service. Well, that's our policy. And you know what policies are worth? Policies are garbage can. And I was pretty perturbed over it. And so I let them know that I was going to make sure that everybody that I came in contact to in my business world, my relationship, one, never got a referral to the company, and two, that I was going to tell as many people as I possibly could how I was treated. Now, that's a little petty, but you know what? I don't know. To me, it was worth $79.
To me, it's not really petty, and I understand what you're talking about, because as you know, I went through something similar with my retreat in Reno, and that was a nightmare. Tanya Parker, everything that I went through as well, that was a nightmare. And the customer service that I got was so abominable that I said, I know that's one of those words I have trouble saying, and yet I just had to say it. It was one of those situations where I said, you know what, I've been going to this location for well over a decade,
right?
And I said, I'm not going to do any business with them, because if this is kind of how they treat their customers,
right,
why should I give them any more of my business? And so
exactly.
I absolutely get that. Tanya, it looks like you may have something you want to say. Yeah.
It's always a training issue when it comes to taking care of the two customers, because there is the external customer as well as the internal customer,
right.
And everybody is not trained to take care of the internal customer. They don't see that will definitely affect the bottom line on anybody's P&L.
Yep, absolutely.
And I don't think the younger generation has been trained in how to do that. They graduate college, they go into customer service, and they still don't know how to deal with people.
Yeah. Well, you make a valid point on it, and I think there is a little bit of an awareness now where it seems like the tide is turning to some extent, because it's still the best competitive advantage you can have, and that's to give that true, what I call real world-class service on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at some research the other day. There's about 2 million promotions in our world today, and about 60% of those promotions within 1 year will be failing or have failed. And the reason they do that is because no one knows. The foundation, if you can't walk, you'll never learn how to run. And to be able to treat a customer properly, what I think is properly, and I put my hard-earned money out on the table, I expect the value for that money. When I don't get it, maybe I may have to walk away, like Tony just talked about, like I've done in this situation. And believe it or not, this person followed it up. When they followed it up, I said, maybe I'm not clear. I have no intention now or ever of doing business. And they're fairly decent. I've got some business partners that they don't want to be in that position, but that's their choice. So,
right.
Yeah, I think, and if anyone has anything they want to add to this conversation, please unmute yourself and please join us. We were sort of talking about this, and Tanya and I have had many, many conversations about, taking care of your customers and making sure that they're okay. And one of the things that Tanya said, which I absolutely agree with, is, you can, when you're promoting your event, you want to establish a relationship with the people who are potentially going to be coming.
Right.
And there is a difference between promotion and invitation. Katerina Rando says this all the time. And sorry, I was off camera. Sorry. Katerina Rando says that all the time. And I absolutely agree with it. And one of the things I tell speakers to do is, listen, you have to pick up the phone. It's not enough just to send them a promotion. You have to call them, pick up the phone and call them and invite them to attend, which is something that I do a lot. And I guess it's from my telemarketing background. I'm sort of used to it. But, you may still get people who flake out. You may get people, you may not get necessarily the numbers that you want, but at least you're establishing some sort of rapport with those people. And I think that's so important. I don't think we do it nearly enough. So there you have it. Right. Yep. So anyone else have anything they want to add to it before we sign off? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, sounds good. So as I said, we were supposed to have 2 other speakers today. I think they might be speaking tomorrow. We've got a full day tomorrow. And so we're going to get going again at 10 a.m. Pacific. And so anyone who can make it, please do call in. The Zoom link is going to be the same. Please do call in and join us. And listen, this is interactive. This is, one of our regular virtual summits that we're doing. We've got a few more coming up between now and the end of the year. If you would like to join us, be sure to email me directly, awil267-487@aol.com. I'm Tony Wilkins. I want to thank all of our speakers and attendees, and those of you who are going to be looking at this afterwards. We are going to upload this later on today. It'll probably be up by tomorrow morning on Facebook. Be sure to check it out and contact some of the speakers. If there's a speaker that you particularly liked and you want to reach out to them, feel free to connect with them on Facebook. They're all on Facebook. Until then, I want to thank everybody, and I will see everyone tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks again.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tanya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, folks.